Imagine a young German soldier, fresh from the blood-soaked fields of Normandy, captured and shipped across the Channel to the very heart of his enemy's homeland. He braces for revenge, for barbed wire and beatings, the horrors whispered in every Wehrmacht briefing. But on a crisp autumn evening in 1944, he finds himself standing outside a quaint English pub, the warm glow of lights spilling out, laughter echoing from within. His British guard smiles, holds the door open, and gestures him inside, for a pint of beer among civilians whose cities his country has bombed relentlessly. This wasn't a trap or a cruel joke, it was a glimpse of humanity in the midst of total war. This is the extraordinary story of Karl Heinrich, a ordinary panzer crewman turned prisoner, whose captivity in Britain revealed that even bitter enemies could share a moment of quiet dignity. A story that challenges everything we think we know about World War II, reminding us that compassion can emerge from the ruins of conflict. Karl Heinrich was born in 1918 in a small town near Stuttgart, the son of a factory worker and a homemaker. Like so many of his generation, he grew up under the shadow of the Nazi regime, joining the Hitler Youth at age 14 and enlisting in the Wehrmacht at 18. By 1944, at 26 years old, he was a seasoned gunner in the 21st Panzer Division, part of the desperate defense against the Allied invasion of France. The Normandy campaign was a nightmare of chaos, endless artillery barrages, strafing runs by Allied fighters, and supply lines that crumbled under constant pressure. Heinrich's unit had been pushed back relentlessly since D-Day on June 6, fighting in hedgerows and ruined villages, watching comrades fall one by one. On August 21, 1944, near the town of Falaise, the Allies closed the infamous Falaise Pocket, trapping tens of thousands of German troops. Heinrich's tank was disabled by a Sherman Firefly, its turret jammed and tracks shattered. With ammunition depleted and orders to hold at all costs ringing hollow, he and his surviving crewmates emerged with hands raised. Canadian infantry, part of the forces encircling the pocket, took them prisoner efficiently. They were searched, disarmed, and marched to a temporary holding area, a muddy field crammed with hundreds of defeated Germans, ringed by barbed wire and watchful guards. For 3 days, Heinrich sat there under intermittent rain, rationed a few biscuits and water, his mind racing with fears of what came next. Stories from basic training painted Allied prisons as vengeful hellholes, where POWs faced starvation or worse. But the reality began to diverge almost immediately. Transported by truck to the coast, Heinrich boarded a converted hospital ship bound for England. The vessel, flying the Red Cross flag to deter U-boat attacks, carried over 250 German wounded and unwounded prisoners. Conditions below deck were tight, bunks stacked 3 high, the air thick with the scent of salt and unwashed bodies, but medics distributed blankets and basic meals, porridge, bread, and weak tea. No beatings, no interrogations beyond basic identification. Heinrich marveled at the absence of malice. These were the same Allies whose bombers had leveled German cities, yet here they provided care under the Geneva Convention of 1929, which mandated humane treatment for captives. The ship docked at Southampton on August 27, and Heinrich's group was herded onto trains heading north. As the landscape rolled by, green fields, orderly villages, and untouched countryside, he couldn't help but contrast it with the devastation in France. Britain, despite years of Luftwaffe raids, seemed resilient, its people carrying on amid blackout curtains and ration books. The train journey lasted hours, passing through the industrial Midlands before arriving at Camp 185 in Derbyshire, a sprawling facility on former farmland about 5 miles from Derby. By 1944, Britain hosted over 200,000 German and Italian POWs, with numbers swelling to nearly 400,000 by war's end. These camps were built hastily but adhered to international standards. No forced labor beyond what's allowed, adequate shelter, and food rations comparable to those of British depot troops. Upon arrival, Heinrich underwent processing in a wooden barracks. He was photographed, fingerprinted, and issued a uniform, British battle dress dyed black with bold PG patches, for prisoner of war in German, Kriegsgefangener, on the back and thighs. His personal effects were confiscated, save for a few letters from home. Assigned to Hut 12, a Nissen hut with curved metal walls and a concrete floor, he shared space with 20 other men. Each had a bunk, a straw mattress, and a small locker. A potbelly stove provided heat, fueled by coal rations. The camp spanned 100 acres, enclosed by double fences and watchtowers, but it lacked the grim austerity Heinrich expected. There was a canteen, a small library with donated books, and even a vegetable garden where prisoners could grow extras like potatoes and carrots to supplement meals. That first evening, the mess hall served a simple but warming supper. Stew made from root vegetables, barley bread, margarine, and ersatz coffee. It wasn't lavish. Britain's own civilians endured strict rationing, with meat limited to a few ounces per week, but it met the convention's requirements of 2,000 calories daily. Heinrich ate slowly, surrounded by fellow newcomers, exchanging wary glances. An older prisoner, a sergeant named Muller who had been captured in North Africa 2 years prior, leaned over and whispered explanations. "The British follow the rules," he said. "No torture, no starvation. They need us for work, and they treat us fair to keep things smooth." Muller described how POWs were classified: black, for die-hard Nazis, who faced stricter camps; gray, for uncertain cases; and white, for those deemed non-ideological, like Heinrich, who could enjoy more freedoms. Work assignments started within days. With Britain's workforce depleted by conscription, over 5 million men in uniform, POWs filled vital gaps in agriculture and industry. Heinrich's group was trucked daily to nearby farms in the Derbyshire Dales, where rolling hills and stone-walled fields awaited. Under loose guard, they harvested wheat, turnips, and sugar beets, tools provided by farmers desperate for hands. The pay: 8 pence a day in camp scrip, redeemable for tobacco, soap, or writing paper at the canteen. Heinrich's first day was grueling, swinging a scythe from dawn till dusk, blisters forming on his palms unused to such labor. But the farmer, a sturdy man named Ellis, was pragmatic. Through a bilingual guard, he explained quotas clearly: meet them, and earn early finishes or small perks like an apple from the orchard. As weeks passed, Heinrich adapted. By mid-September, he finished tasks by mid-afternoon, using spare time to rest under hedgerows, observing the rhythm of rural England. He learned snippets of history from overheard conversations: how these farms had fed the nation through the Blitz, when U-boats nearly starved the island. Interactions with locals were minimal but civil. A land girl from the Women's Land Army once shared a flask of tea during a break, her curiosity overriding suspicion. "You lot aren't so different," she remarked, "just lads caught in the mess." Such moments chipped away at Heinrich's indoctrinated view of the enemy. The Nazis had portrayed Britons as weak imperialists, but here they were resilient, even kind in restraint. Camp life offered structure and small comforts. Sundays meant rest, church services in a makeshift chapel, where a German pastor led hymns, or football matches on a makeshift pitch. The Red Cross delivered parcels occasionally: tinned meat, chocolate, and books, boosting morale. Heinrich joined a reading group, devouring neutral texts like Swiss novels or outdated magazines, a far cry from the propaganda back home. Evenings brought card games or chess, fostering camaraderie among prisoners from diverse backgrounds: Bavarian farmers, Berlin clerks, all united in captivity. But the most surreal development came in early October. Rumors circulated about supervised outings for well-behaved POWs, a policy rooted in Britain's approach to rehabilitation. With guards short and escape risks low, where could one flee on an island? Select groups were allowed brief visits to nearby villages. Heinrich dismissed it as fantasy until Sergeant Wilkins, a no-nonsense guard from Yorkshire, announced volunteers for an evening trip to the village of Ashbourne. 9 prisoners, including Heinrich, signed up, hearts pounding with disbelief. Escorted by 3 armed but relaxed guards, they piled into a lorry and drove the short distance. Arriving at dusk on October 12, 1944, they stopped outside the Green Man, a centuries-old pub with timber beams and a thatched roof. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the sound of chatter drifted out. Heinrich hesitated at the door, pulse racing. Was this a setup? A humiliation? Wilkins grinned. "In you go, lads. 1 pint each, on the house, Army tab. Behave, and we'll all have a quiet night." Stepping inside, Heinrich entered a world frozen in time. Locals at the bar, a fire crackling, the air rich with hops and pipe tobacco. Conversations hushed as the group entered, eyes turning to the PG patches. Tension hung for a moment, thick as fog. Then, an elderly patron, a veteran of the Great War, raised his glass. "Evening, chaps. War's war, but a man's got to drink." The publican, Mrs. Hargreaves, served them bitters, warm, frothy Alish unfamiliar to Heinrich's palate. They sat at a corner table, sipping slowly, absorbing the scene. No hostility erupted. Instead, a few nods, even a brief chat when a guard translated. One local shared how his son was a POW in Germany, hoping for reciprocal kindness. Heinrich nodded, words failing him. This wasn't the Britain of Goebbels' rants, it was a nation clinging to civility, even toward foes. That pint lasted an hour, but its impact endured. As they left amid polite goodnights, Heinrich boarded the lorry in silence, mind reeling. In the hut that night, he scribbled a censored letter home. "I am well treated, safe. The English are not what we were told." Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a captivity that would reshape his understanding of war and humanity. The pub outings became a rare but cherished ritual through the fall of 1944. Every fortnight, if quotas were met and no infractions noted, Heinrich and 8 others would board the lorry under Wilkins' watchful eye. Destinations varied slightly, the Green Man one week, the Crown in a neighboring hamlet the next, but the pattern held firm: arrival at twilight, 1 pint per man, polite distance maintained, departure by 9:30 sharp. Locals grew accustomed to the sight, a nod here, a murmured evening there. Heinrich savored the bitter malty bite, so different from the crisp pilsners of his youth, and the fleeting normalcy of it all. In those dimly lit rooms, amid the clink of glasses and low hum of conversation, the war felt distant, almost unreal. One evening in late October, a barmaid even refilled a guard's glass unprompted, her smile encompassing the table without distinction. Heinrich pondered the irony. These people, enduring V1 buzz bombs and ration queues, extended courtesy to men who had crewed tanks against their allies. Back at Camp 185, life settled into a predictable cadence that belied the global cataclysm. Mornings began with roll call at 6:30, a quick breakfast of porridge and tea, then the truck ride to work sites. As harvest gave way to winter preparations, assignments shifted. Heinrich's crew was dispatched to repair drainage ditches along the River Dove, mucking through cold clay under gray skies. The labor built muscle and endurance. Gone was the gaunt exhaustion of Normandy. Guards like Wilkins fostered a detached professionalism, firm on rules, lax on unnecessary harshness. "Keep your heads down and hands busy," he'd say, "and we'll all get through this." Red Cross inspections occurred monthly, ensuring compliance. No overcrowding, medical care for ailments like Heinrich's occasional cough from damp huts. Parcels arrived sporadically, treasures from neutral countries, sardines, powdered milk, even a bar of Swiss chocolate that Heinrich shared evenly, earning quiet respect. Intellectual pursuits filled idle hours. The camp library, stocked via YMCA donations, offered escapes: Goethe's poems, English translations of Shakespeare, even agricultural manuals that proved practical. Heinrich organized a discussion group, debating philosophy under the stove's glow. Muller, the Africa veteran, shared tales of Italian campaigns, while a former university student from Hamburg recited history lessons on the Treaty of Versailles, tracing roots of the current madness. Music provided solace too. A harmonica player in Hut 12 led sing-alongs of folk tunes, careful to avoid anything too martial. The camp orchestra, formed by musically inclined POWs, practiced in the rec hall. Violins scavenged from donations, a piano tuned by a guard. Their concerts drew full houses, melodies bridging divides as guards occasionally applauded from the back. News trickled in via guarded newspapers or BBC broadcasts overheard in the admin block. By November 1944, Allies had liberated Paris and Brussels, pushing toward the Siegfried Line. On the Eastern Front, Red Army advances devoured entire Wehrmacht armies. Heinrich absorbed it stoically, calculating odds like a chess player. Escape fantasies faded. The island's isolation, coupled with marked uniforms, made flight suicidal. Most POWs, like him, preferred this limbo to the meat grinder back home. "Better alive in England than dead in Russia," became a hushed mantra. Yet, subtle rebellions persisted, carving wooden figurines in secret, trading rumors of hidden radios smuggled in parcels. Winter hardened in December, bringing frost and shortened days. Work moved indoors where possible, sorting potatoes in barn lofts or repairing farm equipment. Pub trips paused amid icy roads, replaced by indoor events. Christmas 1944 stands out in Heinrich's memory, a makeshift celebration defying circumstances. The camp kitchen stretched rations for a feast, roast pork from a local farm, a rare treat, potatoes, and plum pudding donated by British charities. Guards joined for carols, singing Still Nacht alongside Silent Night. Wilkins handed out cigarettes, toasting to peace whenever it comes. Heinrich felt a pang of homesickness for Stuttgart's snow-dusted streets, but gratitude tempered it. This was no Gestapo dungeon, it was structured decency. As 1945 dawned, the war's tide turned irreversible. The Battle of the Bulge in December, a desperate German counteroffensive, faltered by January, costing irreplaceable lives and material. Camp rumors swelled with hope and dread. Then, in late April, whispers of Hitler's death, Mussolini's execution. On May 7, the camp loudspeaker crackled with the announcement, Germany had surrendered unconditionally. VE Day erupted in Britain with street parties and bells, but in Camp 185, silence reigned initially. Prisoners gathered in the yard, faces a mix of relief and uncertainty. Commandant Ellis addressed them, the fighting ends, but repatriation will take time. Maintain discipline. That night, Heinrich lay awake, envisioning reunion with his family, his parents in their modest home, his sister engaged to a factory foreman. Joy soured swiftly. Allied advances uncovered the unimaginable. Dachau, Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen. Photographs in shared newspapers depicted skeletal survivors, mass graves, crematoria. British public outrage boiled over. Questions in Parliament demanded retribution. By mid-May, camp rations dipped, bread portions halved, meat vanished entirely, as policy punished collectively. Ellis apologized privately to prisoner reps. London's orders, not mine. Geneva minimums hold, but no extras. Heinrich stared at the images, horror mounting. He had crewed a panzer in France, not guarded camps, but the SS runes on some comrades' uniforms now haunted him. Whispers in the Wehrmacht, Eastern actions, vanished villages, suddenly crystallized as truth. Complicity weighed heavy, he had saluted the flag enabling monstrosities. Morale fractured. Die-hard Nazis in black compounds boasted denial, but most recoiled. Discussions turned somber. How had a cultured nation descended thus? Heinrich confronted his past, Hitler youth rallies, blind obedience. Pub visits never resumed, guards grew curt, interactions formal. Yet, core humanity persisted, medics treated illnesses, work continued for structure. Summer 1945 brought gradual restoration, rations normalized by July as fury cooled. Vegetable gardens yielded bounties, supplementing meals with fresh greens. Repatriation dragged through 1945. Britain prioritized wounded, anti-Nazis, then others. Heinrich, classified gray, but cooperative, waited. He volunteered for camp maintenance, repairing roofs and paths, earning vouchers for books. In quiet moments, he reflected on Britain's model, adhering to conventions despite provocation, proving civilization's resilience. They could have starved us, he told Muller, but chose not to. That says more about them than us. Finally, on February 14, 1946, Heinrich's name appeared on the list. Bussed to Hull, he boarded a troopship with 300 others, bound for Bremerhaven. The North Sea crossing was stormy, evoking his inbound voyage, but now freedom loomed. Docking on February 17, he entered a shattered Germany, ruins everywhere, Trümmerfrauen clearing rubble, black markets thriving. Trains south were overcrowded with displaced souls. Reaching Stuttgart on February 20, he found his parents' home bombed flat in 1944 raids. His father had perished in a shelter collapse. His mother succumbed to tuberculosis in early 1945. His sister survived in a makeshift shelter, widowed when her fiancé fell on the Oder front. Heinrich rebuilt from ashes. Using Camphone skills, he labored on reconstruction crews, clearing debris, laying bricks for new housing. Pay was in cigarettes or food initially, then marks as currency stabilized. By 1947, he supervised teams under the Marshall Plan, American aid flooding in. He married in 1950, a fellow survivor's daughter, kind-eyed and resilient. They had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. Heinrich rose to own a small construction firm, specializing in affordable homes amid the Wirtschaftswunder boom. He spoke little of the war. To his kids, "I was in France, then England." But privately, he cherished mementos, a faded coaster from the Green Man, pocketed that first night, tucked in a drawer. It symbolized not defeat, but redemption, the British reminder that enmity needn't erase shared humanity. Heinrich visited Britain once in 1972, driving through Derbyshire's familiar hills, pausing outside the Green Man, now modernized. He didn't enter, the memory sufficed. He passed in 1998 at 80, surrounded by family. His granddaughter discovered the coaster among his effects, prompting stories from his wife. "Your grandfather said the English taught him dignity in defeat. They treated prisoners as men, not monsters." Today, that coaster resides in a Stuttgart museum exhibit on POW experiences, alongside letters and photos. Visitors linger, pondering its message. In war's darkest theater, a simple pub evening affirmed that compassion can outlast conflict. Heinrich's tale, echoed in thousands of similar accounts, underscores a profound truth. Nations at arms can still honor the spark of humanity in every soul, choosing mercy over vengeance, even when history demands otherwise. This forgotten chapter of World War II doesn't glorify any side. It illuminates how ordinary people, on both fronts, preserved decency amid chaos, ensuring that even in captivity, the essence of what makes us human endures unbreakable.